What's going on? What's going on? Anthony Joshua versus Pulev. Anthony Joshua comes out victorious. We haven't seen the guy in a long, long time. The last time we saw him, remember, 2 fights back, fought against Andy Ruiz, and he took a loss in that fight. Um, After that fight, he made a couple of adjustments, came back in a rematch, and was able to win. One of the main things you saw was a lot more movement than he usually, used to show. And also, he's a little bit thinner, a little more slender in that particular fight as well. Um, when it came down to this Pulev fight, a lot of the different things that we saw in that fight, we kind of also saw in this particular fight as well. We've seen him still moving, not as much as he did in the Andy Ruiz fight. I mean, the Andy Ruiz fight, they had a ring that was as big as a continent, so he was able to move like crazy. The ring wasn't as that big, but he was still able to see good movement by him. He was still going on with the jab, still using the jab, especially to the stomach, jab to the stomach. Every once in a while, he tried to sneak up a little uppercut and just, kept implementing pretty much that game plan. There was a little dirty fighting in there when it came to Pulev here and there as well, but he didn't get caught up in that. He didn't in no part of the fight, they just stop and be like, all right, I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to take you out. He didn't do that. And because of that, the fight did take a lot longer than people would have expected. You were looking at a good, what was it, like the 9th round or something like that, where it did end. He had dropped Pulev down before that as well. But he just stayed in pocket with what he believes that he needs to do. He understands who he is as a fighter. He understands the positive parts of his game, and he understands the negative parts of his game. He understands that if I get hit with a certain type of shot, I'm going to drop. He knows that. You know what I mean? And people might not want to admit that, but he is. He has an issue when it comes to getting with his jaw. You can call him chinny, whatever you might want to call it. He has that issue. If you can find a way to cover up that issue, though, you can be fine. Klitschko got knocked out a couple of times. Got with the right trainer, figured out a way to keep people away from his damn chin. What's his name? I just forgot this man's name. Lennox Lewis. You blowing that boy, he gonna drop. He's gonna be on the floor. But it didn't matter because he figured out a way around that. He only got caught like twice. 2 or 3 times. Twice, I believe. But then he figured out what to do in order to keep people away from his goddamn chin because he understood that was a flaw, but he was able to cover up that flaw, and he was able to reign for a very long time. So when it comes to someone like Anthony Joshua just understands, there have been all these different fights where I've been buzzed, where I've been hurt. He understands I've had particular fights where I've obviously been stopped. So I need to keep people from getting to my jaw. I need to keep people away from the negative aspects of my game. And he was able to do it. And if that means your fight ends up being longer than what people might want, it to be, then fine. That's what I'll do in order to become victorious. And he was able to do that against Pulev. So you got to commend him for that. But you also got to look at the negatives also as well when it comes to that type of fighting style. One of the major issues that I saw that he had with that fight is that type of way of fighting, he gets tired. And for whatever reason, he didn't have as much movement in this fight as he usually does in other fights, but he still got tired in this fight as well. He got tired. His punches slowed. There was a certain point where his punches really slowed down. It's just Pulev, number one, he was getting battered. Number two, he wasn't in a space where he could take advantage of it because his dumb ass was getting tired too. He was getting exhausted from getting hit across the head a couple times, getting dropped a couple times, body shots, and I don't know what type of shape he was in. But he wasn't able to stay durable during a long period of the fight where if he was able to maintain a certain level of stamina and strength, and he was able to bring that into the second half of the fight, he might have been able to do something, because the opportunities were there. He just wasn't able to take advantage of it. So when you see something like that, obviously since the fight is over, you have to look at other people that this man might fight, whether it be a Deontay Wilder, whether it be a Tyson Fury, whether it be a Luis Ortiz. When you look at those fighters, you got to see, okay, what would happen in those same type of situations. Someone like a Luis Ortiz, southpaw, real rangy, bounces on his feet. He moves like a freaking middleweight. Has a nice jab, has nice straight hand. He has heavy hands, power in both hands. Somebody like that, you're not going to necessarily be able to use that same type of game plan against somebody like that. You might have a lot of issues with that. We saw that he was still susceptible to that straight right hand. That's also an issue. One of the issues that he has as far as his game is concerned, that you could still see that he's still susceptible to. So if you face somebody like a Deontay Wilder, that's not necessarily a good thing to have. Tyson Fury, tall, lanky, all this dirty fighting that was going on, that was being allowed. If they're allowing all that stuff with somebody like a Tyson Fury, him being 260, 270 pounds, him being 6'9", able to just lay on you, able to push on you, that whole part of being tired becomes a major issue when it comes to somebody like that. Forget all the boxing, all that other stuff. Forget all that with Tyson Fury. Just the fact that the way he lays on people, the way he's able to push on people, the way he puts his arms around your neck and pushes on your neck. You know what I mean? He'll put the forearm on you and push you that way. Grab you behind the head, push you down that way. Grab you into a headlock. All these different things that he's able to do, that's all going to take shit out of you. So, even though it was it was a good performance by him and he was able to get the job done, there's obviously things that he needs to be careful of and things that he needs to still continue to work on, because in a different type of fight, you can have a different type of problem. And I understand people might say, oh, well, Luis Ortiz got knocked out with Wilder. Wilder's a different type of animal. Wilder's a different type of power. You know what I mean? Pulev doesn't last 12 rounds with Wilder. Doesn't last 4 rounds with Wilder. Be lucky to make it to a third. That's a different type of power. Completely different type of power. So he's not going to necessarily be able to do to Ruiz what Wilder was able to do to him. I don't think Tyson Fury is able to do that to Andy Ruiz. I think that's a 50-50 fight. Like the way say Styles makes fights. And then when it comes to somebody like Deontay Wilder got knocked out by Tyson Fury. Anthony Joshua can't necessarily do the same. He doesn't have the skill set that Tyson Fury has. He can't do the things that Tyson Fury does. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean that he's a bad fighter. It just means he has a different type of skill set. Marquez is a great fighter. Manny Pacquiao is a great fighter. 2 different skill sets. See what I'm saying? So it doesn't. Shane Mosley, great fighter. Floyd Mayweather, great fighter, but 2 different skill sets. So when it comes to something like a Tyson Fury, the things that he's able to implement and do, he doesn't have. Anthony Joshua doesn't have that height. He doesn't have that weight. He doesn't have that length. He doesn't have that movement. He doesn't have a lot of those things. Anthony Joshua's going to come into the ring, from what I've seen, straight up, stand up in that fight too. So if you're going to do that, that's also going to be a problem. You know what I mean? So completely different fights. So just because Fury was able to do something doesn't mean Anthony Joshua's going to be able to do something. Just because Wilder was able to do something to Ortiz doesn't mean that Anthony Joshua is going to be able to do those things to them. It'd be completely different fights. But it would also be great fights though. But fights that I would love to see. But what's next for Anthony Joshua though? Me personally, what I think is going to happen next is going to be him fighting against Usyk in the UK. And it's going to be a fight where Anthony Joshua stops that boy. That's what I personally believe, Only thing that will give me any type of question will be the fact that he is doing all this movement, the fact that he might not necessarily be putting as much into his punches. Could that end up being a problem? Could that end up being an issue? I don't know. But right now, though, I believe that he'll be able to pull it out. But for now, like, subscribe, share. I'm out.